Turn your brightness all the way up. Now, look closely. Remember those creepy chain emails from the early to mid 2000s? Well, I got one this morning. Maybe you're too young or too old to know what I'm talking about, so I'll explain first. Basically, somebody sends out an email with a subject line like, "Keep reading, do not ignore." And then the message itself will contain some kind of short horror story. Something about how a schoolgirl was pushed down a well, and if you didn't repost it or forward it to X amount of people, she'd come crawling out of your toilet and drag you down into the pipes. Something like that. They all typically followed a similar formula. The first time I got one was back in middle school. Not an email, but a Facebook post that popped up on my feed. I don't exactly remember what the story was, just that it terrified me enough at the time that I actually did repost it. Something my friends completely roasted me for after the fact. But hey, no demon girl ever came crawling out of my toilet, so who's to say that I didn't make the right call? Obviously, the entire concept of these chain emails or scare mails was pretty dumb and juvenile, and most of the stories were so terribly written that they could have only ever worked on skittish 13-year-olds like myself. But, as dumb as they were still entertaining enough to engage with back in the day. It was fun to just screw around and pretend they were real. You know, core childhood memories like that. So this morning I was sitting at my desk, watching YouTube while sipping coffee. My typical routine before work. Before leaving, I did a quick scan through my emails. Nothing unusual. There was an invite to a wedding, a newsletter from my old university, my boss complaining about some other nonsense. But right before I was about to close my laptop, something new landed in my inbox. It was from an address I didn't recognize. Just one word in the subject line. Sorry. A bit weird. A bit concerning. Probably malware, I assumed. I barely respond to the emails that I actually have to respond to, so why would I even bother with something like this? Curiosity got the better of me, and I ended up clicking on it anyway. Life had been a bit monotonous recently. Maybe this would prove to be something interesting. The message was only a few sentences long. I'll paste it below. One night, a woman was hit by a speeding car at night. The driver was intoxicated and didn't call the police. Instead, he dragged her bleeding body down into the sewers and left her there to die. They found her body 2 days later and brought it into the morgue, where they cleaned her up and tucked her away. But when they went to take her out 2 weeks later, she was missing. Her empty body bag, filled with stinking sewage. If you don't forward this to 5 others by midnight, she will be in your room tonight. She will seek vengeance. This is not a joke. You know what you did. I think I laughed out loud after reading it. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd seen one of those. Wow, what a blast from the past. Albeit a little bit more intense than the ones I remembered seeing as a kid. But I suppose that these things have evolved over time. I was still a bit perturbed that it had been sent to my work email, but then again, I work at a pretty big company and it probably wasn't a terribly hard thing to find. The email contained an attachment as well. A single PNG file named her. I just figured it was going to be some kind of AI-generated image of a demon woman, an attempt at a cheap scare in order to prolong the joke. So I decided to humor the sender by opening it up. But there was nothing there. Just a plain, black image. What a letdown. I didn't think too much about it for the rest of the day. Work was stressful enough as it is, and I had to force myself to endure a boxing class afterwards. By the time I got home, I was ready to eat dinner and just pass out. After eating, I was lying on my couch, sipping sangria while messaging this girl, Elisa, that I'd matched with on Hinge. I was having trouble coming up with things to talk about, so I mentioned the email. She was about the same age as me, so I figured she'd get a kick out of it, just like I did. Which she did, by the way. She gave me her own email and asked me to forward it to her. She wanted to see it. Just curious is all. So I sent it over. Then I put my phone down and went to go take a shower. When I checked my phone again, she'd sent another message.
Holy shit. That's terrifying.
I messaged her back with something like, I know, right? I'm shitting bricks just thinking about it. But she told me that she wasn't joking, and that she wasn't talking about the story.
Look at the image again, and turn your brightness all the way up.
Now, look closely, she said. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to read before going to bed, but I went ahead and did so. I opened up my email and re-downloaded the file. Then I turned the lights off and raised the brightness on my phone as high as it could go. I stared intently at the screen. It took some squinting, but I was able to see it. Elisa was right. It was absolutely terrifying. You couldn't see much, but you could see just enough. A set of floating teeth, just barely reflecting with the minimal light there was. The crescent-shaped mouth suggested a smile. Two eyes hovered above. Both of them were unnaturally wide, as if they were actively being pried open by unseen hands. Immediately, I turned the lights back on. You know that feeling you get when you dig into your pockets and your wallet or phone isn't there? I was feeling something similar to that, but with an added layer of dread. The details just didn't add up. Was the email a joke or a genuine attempt at a scare? It was too terribly written to be serious, but if it was a joke, then why was this image the creepiest thing I'd ever seen? Elisa sent another message, saying that she'd used a program called Lightroom to lift the exposure, making the image as bright as possible. I stared at her second email sitting in my inbox before opening it up, and this is the point where any humor or nostalgia was completely sucked away from the situation. The image was still extremely dark, but enough details had been revealed for it to be somewhat clear that it was a woman's face. Well, kind of. More like something imitating a woman. Something extremely uncanny. It felt like my brain was trying to convince me that it was actually a mannequin, mostly due to the paper white skin. But the longer I stared at it, the less likely that seemed to be. Because I'd never seen a mannequin with an expression like that before. Something so hateful, so evil, it didn't even seem possible for any person or machine to recreate. The smile was there, though the jaw was clenched, the teeth pressed tightly together. The nostrils were large, flared wide open, each one like a shotgun barrel. The eyes were owl-like, stretched out in a painful-looking way, but the brows were drawn down, the skin furrowed heavily between them, as if this person were actually supposed to be squinting. A contradiction of features, I don't really know how else to explain it. I tried doing a reverse image search, but it came back empty. I know that's not definitive proof of anything, but I was hoping that at least an obscure art forum would have turned up. The picture was just so odd and frightening that being able to connect it to something would have maybe settled my nerves a bit. Whoever had conjured this whole thing up was pretty good, I must admit, because it really had freaked me out in a way that I really didn't like. I was standing in the kitchen just mulling it all over when somebody knocked at my door. I checked the time, seeing 10 past midnight. Weird, but Alright. I walked over to the door and checked the peephole and saw a cop standing at my door. That was even more weirder. I opened it and immediately she asked me to step outside. No explanation, just this dead serious look in her eyes, as if she thought I was hiding a body somewhere. I asked her, "What's this about?" "Come out now," she said, her voice now barely above a whisper. "Just do it." Maybe I'd done something while I was blackout drunk? I don't know. In any case, I obliged. As soon as we were out in the hall, the cop shut the door behind me. She gestured for me to follow her, and I did. The first question she asked me, once we made it outside of the parking lot, was whether I lived by myself or not. I told her that I lived by myself. She took a deep breath and introduced herself as Officer Viana, before explaining that she had been called over here to deal with a noise complaint. I knew exactly who she was talking about. A guy named Sam living 3 doors down from me. Rich college kid. Kind of annoying as hell, but I wasn't the one who called it in. After warning him to shut the music off, she walked outside to leave when she looked over at the window leading into my bedroom. I lived on the first floor and my unit's right beside the entrance. If you were about average height, you'd be able to see into it from the lot. She said that I hadn't closed my blinds and that I'd let my window open and that the street lights were just bright enough for her to be able to see inside. She said that she saw the outline of a figure standing by the door, completely still, as if they were waiting for somebody to enter. She said it didn't look like a doll or a mannequin, but she got a sense it was something dangerous. The entire time she spoke, she had her hand on her weapon, her eyes continuously darting between me and the window. I did remember leaving the windows and blinds open. It's a bad habit of mine, admittedly, but someone would have had to break through the mesh screen in order to get in. I would have heard it. Sam's obnoxiously loud music bleeding through the walls would not have been enough to muffle it. Not a chance. And then I'd realized I'd gone into my bedroom to reach the shower about half an hour before Officer Viana showed up. I hadn't seen anything then, but what if I just hadn't looked? Honestly, I didn't want to believe what she was telling me, because if it was true, then what in the hell was I dealing with? We were standing too far away from the building for me to be able to see anything, so I began walking over to the lot to get a look at it myself. But Officer Viana stopped me. "You probably don't want to see it," she told me. "For your own sake, I wouldn't recommend it." Her tone was earnest enough for me to believe her. I asked her what I was supposed to do then. She told me to just wait. She already called for backup, and once they arrived, they'd go ahead and enter my apartment and investigate it. Didn't seem like I had another option, so I agreed. At this point, I'm still hanging on to skepticism, more as a coping tool than anything else. The backup arrived nearly 20 minutes ago, and they're still in my apartment. It was getting colder outside, so right now, I'm waiting in the lobby. If anyone's wondering, no, I still haven't told them about the email. There's just no way. No way it could have been connected. But now, I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm not sure what to expect from here. If anything else happens, I'll be sure to update you. Thank you for staying until the end of the show. I appreciate you giving me some of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again. If you can tell me what you enjoyed about today's episode, that will help me so I can know what things to give you more of. This story came from Reddit user Mr. Outlaw. I really enjoyed how the story updated the familiar chain email concept for a modern audience while maintaining the core psychological hook. progression from dismissive nostalgia to genuine terror felt natural and believable. The next video will be a story written by yours truly, so if you like my own writing style, tune in for that if you don't want to miss that. However, there is a part 2 to the story that I'm more than looking forward to being able to read and share with you all. And if you want to listen to more of my voice, you can just listen to all the episodes in the series here. Furthermore, if you have a story that you would like to recommend to me, you can reach out to me via Reddit, Discord, or email. Those methods of communication will be placed in the description for your convenience. Again, if you enjoyed today's episode, tune in for the next story or just go back and catch the last one. But until then, I hope you watch the shadows that lurk just beyond your sight. Thank you for listening, and to all, a good night.